Hello folks, Roger Daniel Alcocer here for the Magnificent World of Toys. So I hope you enjoyed our last video, which was pretty much a marathon of our first year as the Magnificent World of Toys. And so this time I bring you the year 2 of the Magnificent World of Toys, which was 2020. And you may notice that this one's a little short, and you probably know why. So it was very frustrating to basically get our channel going, start building momentum, and then basically start 2020, and then bam, the pandemic hits. And so, we were able to capture a few awesome artists and some great vintage collections, but that particular year, I was basically stuck with not having people I can visit and things like that. And so I basically had to crank out a lot of content, homegrown content, figure reviews and the other stuff like that. You won't see any of that in this marathon. I mean, you could always just go back to the YouTube channel to check that out. I did insert 2 little videos towards the end. Hopefully you'll enjoy that. And once again, thank you for your support. I hope you're enjoying this content, and I'll see you at the end.
I've been a sculptor since I was 12. That's when I started sculpting. Getting professional gigs when I was 15. When I was a kid, I loved to draw. I loved monster toys. I had a huge Universal Monster collection when I was a kid. I was obsessed with Mighty Max, small little worlds of creatures and monsters and things. I used to just paint garage kits all the time because they're amazing. They're better quality than most toys you can find. I did painting competitions at model conventions. That's where it just kind of evolved into making my own little worlds of things and creatures and characters. My name's Adam Doherty. I'm a sculptor and character designer and filmmaker, all-around creative guy. Growing up in a really creative family and having a lot of encouragement from my parents and friends. My dad grew up in the 50s and 60s with the Aurora model kits. He painted those as a kid. When I was young, he would buy me monster model kits, teach me how to paint, stuff like that. And then it was through collecting toys that I met other collectors who also were sculptors and painters. My brother being a sculptor for Distortions Unlimited in Colorado. He started there as a painter and saw how they would sculpt things and stuff, learned about clay and all that, how to make stone molds. So he always had the materials lying around in the garage. Through the encouragement of friends and him, I tried sculpting, and that's kind of where it started. I started making latex busts and masks, doing full-size pieces of Frankenstein and the Creature from the Black Lagoon. And from there, I learned about the garage kit community and making your own small-scale statues and resin kits and molding in silicone. I would just sculpt my favorite classic monsters. I was obsessed with the Universal monsters, so I did a ton of Creature from the Black Lagoon sculptures and Frankenstein and Wolfman and all those. And that just evolved into me getting hired by garage kit companies to sculpt for them, and they would sell the model kits. I was sculpting so much, I was doing terrible in school. I was getting really bad grades because all I wanted to do was, I had commissions I had to finish, I had deadlines. With my parents' encouragement, which was amazing, at the end of 10th grade, they encouraged me to drop out of school and focus on sculpting full time, since that's what I was already doing and obviously what I was super passionate about. I did 1 week of 11th grade and then I dropped out of school, became a full-time sculptor, sculpting in the basement. I started getting commissions from larger companies doing styrene snap-together model kits that were licensed. I did licensed Universal pieces and Elvira model kit. And then it eventually just became just a full-time career until when I turned 21 and my dad passed away. I got the motivation to move out to California, which is where my parents grew up and met, try to get into the practical effects industry, working on monster movies. And that's kind of where I've been ever since, starting this career in movies and filmmaking and all that stuff. I think I like to create stuff because I feel like any creative person just has a overactive imagination. We all have our own visions of things and funny characters and stuff. I really like to create worlds and characters and stuff to inspire kids. I was so inspired by toys when I was little and living in your head and playing with little worlds. I always wanted to just create that myself and share it with other people. Getting in the zone when you're creating something and getting in your head distracts you from all the other just dumb stuff that's going on in life. Just kind of lifts your spirits, gives you something to look forward to every day, which I think a lot of people look for. You know, gives you a reason to wake up in the morning, you know, because you got to finish this project that's in your head and get it out of your head. And then once you finish something and you create a character and get that out of your head, all of a sudden you have another goofy one, and that's the next 6 months work, and then you'll finish that one, and then there's another project you got to do. It's just the constant chase to bring things in your mind into reality and then get the response, you know, of people who enjoy it and people who like it, or people who liked seeing you go through the process of the nightmare of making something, and then the reward of, you know, a pat on the back, which is nice, but then just being proud of yourself for completing something that was nothing from scratch, and then getting it out to the world, you know, whether it's just posting a photo online or selling it to a collector or something like that. So, I don't know, it's fun. The constant chase is the reward of actually completing something, which is the hardest part. I get a lot of my inspiration from like history. That's why I love collecting antiques. I get so inspired by how things were handmade and engineered to last forever. And something as simple as a desk or a shelf was a piece of art that came from a beautiful tree that someone 100 years ago worked very hard to create. That inspires the heck out of me. I like the concept of creating something that'll last forever, even if it ends up in a thrift store or somewhere unappreciated. It still exists, and somewhere at some point someone will find it and cherish it. You know, I take a lot of inspiration from history. I take a lot of inspiration from film. I loved The Creature from the Black Lagoon. I loved the environments, the castle on the hill and the foggy woods, and just how they made those movies and did the makeup and did the suits, and that's always an inspiration for me. I work with clay, foam, kind of the whole list of stuff you can imagine to sculpt in. I started out using Super Sculpey, which you can get at your local hobby store or Michael's or whatever. Eventually you learn about different clays and different ways to mold things and cast things and all that. My new venture is digital sculpting, which I've been a digital sculptor for quite a few years now, but just recently I'm making the transition from sculpting and casting my own products to 3D printing them and actually selling the 3D prints to eliminate mold making and casting. So 3D printing is my new avenue to create things, which is going pretty well so far. I think digital sculpting is a pretty amazing tool that I'm still learning the basics of, but it's really fun. When I go about making something, I usually try to do most of the work myself just because I like learning the steps and process, but I do work with a lot of other artists whose work I really admire. When I start out with a piece, I usually sketch it. Instead of doing a regular pencil on paper sketch, I now do a quick digital sculpt sketch. Using ZBrush as a tool, I'll block out the silhouette and kind of shapes and forms and expression of the character. It's a really neat tool to just get a quick concept down. And with that, depending on the piece, if it's a personal piece or if it's a commission, I'll work with another artist or a client who will critique it and give me their opinion. And from there, I'll take it to clay and start blocking it out and finding the character in clay, or finishing the digital sketch to be the final digital file that I'll print. I don't know, I don't really keep a strict schedule on finishing a piece. I try to, If it's a personal project, it's usually off hours. I work best at night. If I don't have a day job, I'll usually be on a night shift, so I sleep during the day, I work during the night. For some reason, I'm just more creative at night. I'm very proud of everything I've made for my own personal work. Making these art pieces is super not fun, but the reward of seeing the finished piece is pretty great. I like to deal antiques and restore antiques on my free time. My mom is a very big antique collector. She grew up collecting and restoring a little bit, and she got my dad into it, and she taught me about identifying furniture and eras things were made. I love thrift store hunting and finding old pieces of art, like a desk or a clock that was handmade 100 years ago, that's now just sitting in a thrift store for nothing compared to what you would find at a Target or an IKEA. I like surrounding myself with objects that inspire me, whether it's something that was handmade or something that has character that gets the creative juices going. Most everything I own is 100 or so years old. And another reason why I collect all this stuff is a lot of the film projects that I have in mind. Quite a few of them are period pieces, and that's always been an issue, is finding set dressings. And a lot of people would be surprised that renting furniture and stuff like that for a set is more expensive than actually just finding it and buying it and just using it around your house as your furniture. I've been collecting since as far back as I can remember. I always had monster toys on shelves. Parents were amazing when it came to giving me awesome Christmas presents. I always had display cases with all my toys. It all built up to having this massive Universal Monster collection. Specifically the Creature from the Black Lagoon. I had a giant Creature from the Black Lagoon collection. My whole life I was collecting specifically the Creature from the Black Lagoon. That's a character I'm really just passionate about. I've probably sculpted him more than any other character. I think I've done maybe 15 or 20 creature sculptures. It finally just turned into, I had this really large collection of toys and memorabilia and stuff. And then I moved to California. I became passionate about filmmaking and creating, and I never had the money to do it. A struggling 21-year-old in California trying to create things, and I had no money. But I had this giant, massive collection of childhood toys saved up in my hometown, Colorado. When I was 22, I moved back to Colorado and I sold everything I owned, and with that money I bought a camera and lighting and the equipment I needed to follow my passion of making things and trying to tell stories and create characters, create short films, and also document my sculpture work. I wanted to show people the nightmare of having to go through making something for 6 months out of your life or a year, and show people in a creative way all the steps you kind of got to go through to making something. I did my first 2 short films. I did 2 music videos, both incorporating different techniques of practical effects while also telling original stories that I was just interested at the time. So the first short film was Hope I Die. It was a period piece about a kid who befriended a ghost. And the practical effects technique in that short film was the same effect they used on the ghosts in Poltergeist, which was a rod puppet with fabric draped over it, and then you film it in a water tank, and then you incorporate that footage on top of the footage of a kid in a field, which was my story, and the effect is amazing for a floating apparition. And the second short film that I did was using stop motion animation, which is something I've always wanted to do. The short film is about a kid's imagination, a little boy in the 1960s playing with his pug dog, Pug Lou. You go back and forth between him playing in his living room with his imagination of him being a spaceman on a planet fighting a pug monster. So the short film was only 2 minutes long, and from that, a local company is now producing a vinyl toy of the character. The response online of me filming the making of that process on top of the short film itself, I think people just really enjoyed seeing the amount of work that goes into something that's just 2 minutes long, and the amount of work that goes into making stop motion animation and making a puppet and animating it. People really seem to like the character. Right now, I'm just trying to make the next step up to make an even better, longer short film, creating new characters and using different techniques of practical effects. I've gotten some of my work licensed before. My work's been in a few toy stores before, but Puggloo is the first character that I've ever designed and created that's 100% mine, that's become a toy. So that's really weird to see. It's really cool, especially because Puggloo was a pug joke. Me and my friends at work were just really bored, and I missed my dog, Buster number 3, who lives in Colorado. I was in a creative rut. I really wanted to do something that I didn't get wrapped up in, and I didn't get personally invested in, and it was just more of a joke. So I was like, I'll just do a stupid pug thing, because it's funny. I thought a pug monster would be hilarious. Doing Puggloo was just fun and laughing the whole time, and I wasn't expecting anything to come from it, but people responded really well to it. It's definitely weird. It's weird seeing him kind of evolve and snowball into something out of my hands. I'm definitely very proud of Puggloo. Right now, I'm working on Grunkle Stan from the show Gravity Falls. It's probably the most detailed piece I've ever made. The full head is punched hair. He has actual removable glasses and a removable hat, and there's a light up element in it, and he's gonna be a taxidermy display plaque. I've been working on him for maybe 6 months now. Probably 4 of those months is sculpting. It's been a drag, but probably one I'm most proud of. I do sell my work. I create limited edition collectible statues that I sculpt here in my workshop. The new technique is I'm 3D printing them, and I paint those 3D prints myself. I sell those as collectible statues, or I create custom pieces, large full-size silicone pieces. But everything that I sell and offer is on my website, creaturekid.com, and the Puggloo from Planet P toys are on creaturekid.com.
Like how many cat layers do you have?
Cat layer?
Yeah.
I got 4 in boxes now and 1 loose one. Before I used to have 7. I used to have 4 in boxes and 3 loose ones. But I traded or sold them. This is my first one that I ever got. This cat layer. From there I started buying more and more cat layers. This one, I collect arbitrary stuff, mostly Thundercats, He-Man. I've been collecting vintage toys for 7 years. I want to start collecting because memories from my childhood. The first toy I bought was Thundercats. It was Lino. I bought it because that was my first figure that my parents bought me. The Lino I bought it at eBay. That's where I started everything from eBay. First I started with the Thundercat line. After I completed that line, I started with He-Man. From there, I started buying every single line every week, at least twice or 3 times a week. Started buying Tiger Sharks, Silverhawks, Voltron, Ninja Turtles. A little of everything that reminds me of my childhood. I've been trying to put everything in this garage, display, but I'm running out of room, so I need another room. I had a bathroom before. I made it as a little toy room as well. I don't have He-Man in there. I got Steve Sharks in there, Voltron in there, just everything. They love everything. I would look for rare stuff that is hard to get. Like I bought on eBay. It had to be in good condition. It had to be complete now. Before I wasn't that picky. I always just get the figure. Now I need them complete.
What is this one?
The prototype test shot. It's from Toys Nebula. That's what I bought on Facebook from a group. And he offered it to me and I bought it. It's a Toys. It's from Venezuela.
So what is it? What is it, like a prototype?
It's a prototype, first shot. Actually, my rare pieces are my prototypes from Thundercats and He-Man. They it's one of a kind. I met some guy in Sweden, and he used to send me those prototypes. Captain Shiner. Yeah.
Is that the prototype?
Yeah. This one I bought from Sweden from a guy that I know. His name Kristen. I bought from Kristen. And this is the second of the two. They're supposed to make another wave for the Thundercats, but they stopped it because they stopped the cartoons, so they stopped the line. He's supposed to be laughing and talking. The little hole right there is supposed to be a speaker, and then in the back it was gonna be the electronic stuff inside. So he's one of the two that survived or they made. The first one I don't know who has it still, but it's the second one.
What is that? Where'd you get this one?
Same guy over there in Sweden. Almost all of them I buy from the guy Kristen. The copy of before they created it. See, you can take the hands off. And,
This is another prototype.
yeah, hard copy.
Sort of.
They call them hard copies. These ones, they're already painted and everything. They have the. I feel like wood, but it's not wood. It's a different material, I guess.
Like, how long do you think you'll be collecting?
All my life, you can't stop collecting. When I order it, I'm anxious to get it, like a little kid trying to open a gift for Christmas. That's how I feel. Like, excited. Usually, for me to sell something vintage, it's hard for me. If I have doubles, I would probably sell it to get something new that I don't have. That's the only reason I would sell it. If not, I would keep it. My wish list, I just got one already from the three I'm looking for. Right now, the one I'm looking for is from Ghostbusters Filmation. It's to place it, actually the house, the command center. One of the rare pieces to get so far for me. It's out there, but it's going for $2,000, $2,500 to get it.
You know, it's like the most important piece. Not so much as far as the most expensive, but the one that has the most sentimental value.
It'll be Road Ripper Big Wheel. When I was 6 years old, I had one of those. I used to ride it. A couple days ago, I searched it on eBay and it pops up. Buying it now for $500. I put an offer for $350. I took it, so I bought it without the stickers. I'm supposed to get them by next week. But it took me 7 years to find it. As a kid, my favorite toy was a Webster. There's a reason for the string. This one is from Mexico. It's a big head. If you compare it, look at his head. You see, this is Mexico. This is big old head.
So would you say this is like your rarest, like carded, like Masters of the Universe set?
Gift set, yeah. The rarest one, yeah. This one, I got two. The birds. With Skelly. One is from Canadian, the other one is France. See, man? The back hat. Read it. That shark with Skelly toy. I got escalator, aqua attack, and cliff climber. All three. Look at the art.
Yeah.
Look at this one. So there. Heroic warriors. This is the Catra. And the horse. Like, this is hard to find them. I got this Catra with claw teeth. What's that? The Sweet Bee with Christian Sun Dancer. Better armor He-Man.
You know, how often do you come back here? Are you here like every day, or you just kind of, do you ever get tired of just like being here, or you...
No, I come every day just to, after work, just to relieve the stress or anything.
Yeah.
I just come, watch a movie or something, cartoons, and just hang out for an hour and a half.
What was the toy that was hardest for you to get?
The hardest toy was the Road Ripper. If it's an action figure or if it's a vehicle, it was the Road Ripper on big wheel.
Yeah.
But for the figure, I'd probably have the Wonder Break He-Man they have in the back.
Oh, okay.
Graded. It was a mail away from the Wonder Bread. You send it to them, and they will send you a Wonder Bread in a sealed bag. A lot of people they don't know what actually happened to this figure or what was it. If you try to get one out of the street, it could be a custom.
A fake.
Yeah, a fake one.
Yeah.
So what I did, I wanted to buy a graded one, so like that, I wanted to get a fake one. So this was a 7.5, and he only came with these two the axe and the sword. But there's some other ones that it has 4 or 5 of them, but they're not. It doesn't belong to him. Only these two.
So what would you say to somebody trying to start collecting vintage, man? What kind of advice would you give them?
I guess start with your favorite as a childhood. Start with the common ones. From there, and then if you like the rare ones, it'll be after because they're pretty pricey.
What are you gonna do when you run out of space?
The only thing I could do is buy a new house. Buy a new house or extend my garage or something.
name is Mark Enright. Some people may know me better as Mortar Heads, which is my kind of brand company name that I started a while back. And basically I make masks, novelty items, also paint and draw a little bit, but masks are my primary thing that I make, latex masks. And I also collect latex masks and some action figures, mostly vintage Star Wars toys, Star Wars masks, vintage ones, and model kits. I've been making masks. It's been just about 4 years to the day almost, actually, that I started making masks. I started sculpting about 15 years ago, but I started sculpting actually in mortar, brick mortar, and I would make relief sculptures of Star Wars characters. And I kind of started that to supplement my income to buy more collectibles. And it kind of snowballed into creating more, and the creation of things became more important than collecting them. So now I kind of make more things for other people to collect than for myself to collect. The things I create and the things I collect, actually, I'll have a real nostalgic connection for me. Vintage Star Wars figures like Walrus Man and Hammerhead and Greedo. All those toys were things that I loved as a kid and played with them, you know, for years and years. And I think also taking a lot of those things that I liked as a kid and turning them into masks is just something new for those other people out there that have connections to those items. And when they see that, they're like, oh, I gotta have that, you know, I want that in my life. Kind of the same reason why I made it, because, you know, I wanted it to exist. So I started making them. As far as inspiration, I was a songwriter and a musician for probably like 20 years of my life before I fully got into art. And so as a songwriter, you get inspiration from everywhere. Like it could be a word, you know, an image, something you read in a book, and that's carried over for me in mask making. You know, I think of masks as a song pretty much. I think of a title, you know, like you think of something like Fang Face or, you know, Frankenstein 2001. You have a great title, and it just gives you a good jumping off place for making a mask or creating a mask. So, you know, inspiration is everywhere. It's on, you know, like I said before, Halloween decorations, on, you know, vintage box art for model kits. There's so much stuff out there to be inspired by. I have tons of influences. They probably don't show up much in my work, but the big influence on me was Ralph McQuarrie. As a kid, I remember getting the Empire Strikes Back trading cards, and they had his paintings on them, and those still to the day are some of my favorite paintings. Ray Harryhausen. I grew up watching, you know, all the Sinbad movies, Clash of the Titans. Star Wars obviously had a huge influence on me. Bob Ross. When I was a kid, my grandfather, he would watch Bob Ross with me. He went out, bought canvases and oil paint, and we would do oil painting in the Bob Ross style. I don't know if that's kind of cliche to say Bob Ross is an influence, because he probably influenced tons of people, because I'm sure tons of people have seen his videos, and people kind of think of him as a joke or not a serious artist, you know, with the happy trees and happy accidents or whatever. But to me, that was a real, you know, early on, that was something that I got to do that I'm sure, you know, helped develop my skill set in some way, you know, till now. The materials I use, my main material is latex. I try to make everything I can out of latex. I used to use mortar, and when I used to sculpt in mortar, it's basically like sculpting in cake mix or mud. That's why they were relief sculptures, because you had to sculpt them flat. But now, when I transitioned into clay, I make molds, hydrocal molds. Everything is hydrocal molds, and I use water clay. Probably 99% of the time I use wet clay. That's what I sculpt all my masks in. So I sculpt them in wet clay, I make the mold out of hydrocal, and then I cast them in latex. And also all the other like novelty items I make, like the eye pads and eye pukes that are like fake puke, fake blood puddles with eyeballs in them, and melted snowmen. I have all that stuff, and I make it all out of latex with stone molds. I have a huge list of items that I want to make, so I pretty much go on that list or requests or commissions that I get to choose a project. Once I know what it is, if it's an existing character, I'll just try to gather as much reference as I can from all angles to help me sculpting. If it's an action figure, because I do a lot of action figure masks, it's really great to have the 3D representation sometimes of that item. And so from there I'll make the sculpts, and that takes anywhere from probably a month, because I'm not working on it every day. Once that happens, I'll make the mold. The mold usually takes about a whole day to make. It could be like 8 to 13 hours to make a mold sometimes, depending on the size. From there, once the mold dries, I clean it out. I cast it up in latex, trim all the flashing off, cut eye holes in it, breathing holes, ventilation, that type of thing, and then paint it, airbrush it, and send it off to the customer. I do everything myself. It would be nice to have somebody to mold it so I could just keep sculpting and just pass the mold off and have someone else make the mold, because a lot of people don't like the molding process. I like making the molds. It's just very time consuming and very messy, and if you don't make a good mold, you're not going to get a good product. Or, you know, when I'm doing an action figure, if I mold it, I try to keep it as accurate as I can to the action figure. So I'll even follow the seam line on the action figure when I do the mold. Because the seam line exists on the action figure, I like to leave it there a little bit so you can get that full action figure look to it. Last year I did for Mask Fest, which was my very first time going to Mask Fest, a Halloween 3 tribute mask. So I combined the witch, the skull, and the pumpkin all in one mask. And then I made a hood, the plush hood, and then I painted it, and it's the 3 styles. My mom used to work for Singer Sewing Machines, and I would go to work with her. Her boss had a VCR in the back, and I would just sit back there and watch horror movies for hours. You know, Halloween 1, Halloween 2, and Halloween 3. And Halloween 3, I watched that so many times. That's been one of my favorite movies, probably my whole life. So obviously Trick or Treat Studios, they got the license and they put those masks out again, which is great because I have those. And it was good to have those, be able to go just buy them again. But I really wanted to do something Halloween 3 inspired for Mask Fest too. So that was probably my favorite project. I do collect some toys. I have a few action figures. I have some Remco mini monsters. I collect those. I have a few Star Wars characters, loose ones. At one time I had an entire Walrus Man character focus, and my whole collection was all Walrus Man, you know, carded figures, loose figures, prototypes, packaging prototypes. I had everything Walrus Man almost that you can imagine. But then it just got to the point where I had so much stuff that the next things on the list were just too expensive. From there I collected model kits, and I collected all the vintage Star Wars model kits from different countries. As a kid, one of the very first model kits I built that were Star Wars was the C-3PO figure model. And I remember getting that model as a kid and building it on my grandparents' table. I didn't even use instructions. It was just so easy to glue it together. And so, you know, those Star Wars models have a real nostalgic connection with me too. Then when I got into collecting masks, because masks now, as you can probably see around me, take up most of my collecting space. So once I got into masks, the model kits kind of fell by the wayside. I started collecting about 16 years ago. And it was probably because I discovered eBay. And I was able to go on eBay and get back all the stuff I had as a kid, and also get all the stuff that I wanted as a kid but never got. Like I have a Kenner Hugo, and that was something I didn't have as a kid, but I found one that someone had thrown away, and I always wanted one, and it didn't have any of the accessories, but I had that. And my little cousin, he was so terrified of it. He said the eyes were creepy, so I cut the eyes out of it. And then it was even more creepy, so that my mom made me just get rid of it completely. And, you know, I have a Lando Calrissian in disguise. I have that one. That was the last action figure I ever got as a kid. You know, we went to the store, and my grandfather was buying stuff for the kids, and I was like 12 or something at that point. You know, I got that, and That was the last, Star Wars item I ever got as a kid. It doesn't have to be something I had as a child. Pretty much anything that I really like, or really affects me, that I get some kind of reaction from, I like to collect. Well, as far as grails, I don't really have a lot of grails. I've been looking for a Chewbacca Don Post mask with the open mouth for quite a while. As far as the things in my collection, I have a light beam lightsaber, which is basically a flashlight with a big tube on it. And I remember getting that as a kid. There's a Star Wars poster art kit by Craftmaster. And Craftmaster was from General Mills, who owned Kenner, so that was all connected. But the poster art kit and that lightsaber, which is just a flashlight with a big tube connected to it, those are probably the most, not valuable, but most sentimental items I have. And as far as masks go, I don't have any really super rare things, but I do like Pat Newman, who was a sculptress for Don Post. She's one of my favorite sculptors. And I have a few pieces like the Mesmer that she did. She did the Tor Johnson. I have quite a few of the different Tor Johnson masks. And those are probably some of my favorite pieces, the ones I'm most proud of. As of right now, with making masks is not my sole income. I actually work for a makeup effects company, and I spray bald caps. Currently transitioning to a place where sculpting is going to be my primary source of income. Being in production, it was good, to be in that side of things. Sometimes people go, oh, it's glamorous, the makeup effects world, but when you're just making products, it's almost like making the donuts. You're not really creating anything new, you're just making things for other people to create, which is great. But as an artist, and you kind of have that feeling, that urge that you want to do your own thing, you really just have to take a chance sometimes, and some people aren't able to do that. But if you have to work a normal job while you're sculpting or doing art, then sometimes that's just what you have to do. I know Shannon Shea, who was a effects artist who worked for Stan Winston for many years. He once said, if you're doing a day job, when you come home, drink some coffee and get out there and do your own thing. You can't wait on your own stuff. You gotta really just keep pushing and keep doing it if you really want to do it, until you get to that point where you can flip it and have your art be the thing that's supporting you, and not the day job or whatever supporting you. And advice for people who want to get into the business or just want to do art, I would just say, just do it as much as possible. Don't worry about likes on social media, what other people are doing on social media. It's great to be inspired. I think there's a ton of great artists out there. Every day I see people and I'm like, wow, you can't really follow those things. You just have to be kind of inspired by them and strive to do stuff that's just as cool. Practice, sculpt a lot. I mean, I've been sculpting for like 14 years. So, and I'm still not as good as many people. So use reference. There's nothing wrong with reference. Learn anatomy. That's something that everyone always says when they ask, if I want to get into sculpting, what do I have to do? I think a lot of the techniques are out there, and it's very easy to get information. And now we have Stan Winston School. Also Jordu Shell does mask making classes. There's tons of YouTube videos. You can also ask. I'm on Instagram, I'm on social media, so anyone ever has any questions about anything, they can, ask me too, and I would gladly answer their questions. I do sell my work, so you can contact me on Instagram. It's at Mortar Heads. I actually have two Facebook pages. I have Mortar Heads, The Art of Mark Enright, and I have another page just called mortarheads.com for some reason. And I also have a Squarespace page, which is basically just kind of some random art, pumpkin etchings and pumpkin carvings I've done, paintings, and my masks, of course. And I also have an Etsy page too, and they're all Mortar Heads. So if you go Mortar Heads at Squarespace, you'll find that, or Mortar Heads on the Etsy app, it'll come up. It's all my stuff.
So one of the cool things for me about collecting that's oddly put me in a place professionally that I never thought would happen. I lived in LA for almost 15 years, mostly working in archival and documentary series type capacity. I've always had an affinity for toys throughout all of these decidedly non-toy related productions, but there's always been a presence of some sort of toys in my workspace that, again, has always been very welcome. So I kind of had this reputation as being a guy who's really into, vintage action figures and whatnot. That reputation led me to my current home over at Nacelle, working on stuff like the Toys That Made Us, because a coworker of mine who had this knowledge of my love of toys ended up at the company that makes the Toys That Made Us, and when that show was in a very early infancy of pre-production, mentioned, hey, I know a guy who works in documentary series type stuff and is really into toys, and I think you should be on this show. And long story short, that put me where I am today. My name is Richard Myrick. I'm a producer at Nacelle Company on the Toys That Made Us. I collect a wide range of vintage toys. I think where my heart really lies in is always been kind of the more obscure, the oddball stuff, like the weirdo toys, the things that maybe weren't on every toy shelf back in like the 70s and 80s, but somehow found their way into enough hands that there's a fondness for it. And inexplicably, I had a decent amount of those growing up, and those are always kind of the things that I always search out for the most. But at the same time, I do also love some of the absolute icons of like 80s toys, like Superpowers and Masters of the Universe, Thundercats and whatnot. I think a lot of my collecting is a way to hold on to years that I was awfully fond of, and I think that's probably not an exception. I think a lot of people collect vintage toys because they are a physical representation of a time in their lives of unbridled creativity and inspiration. And I think for me personally, holding on to that kind of creativity and whimsy and inspiration is important to my line of work. And so it's kind of like bringing those two worlds together. And my collection is an extension of that. It's almost like time travel in a way. It gives me a chance to have little bits of my past and little bits of things that have shaped who I am at arm's reach, or to be able to just walk in and look at and remind myself of those particular times and those impactful moments that kind of brought me to where I am now, and to have these little physical reminders of what inspired me to pursue what I've pursued, who I am from like a creative standpoint, is so important to me. Finding these little relics and treasures it's like treasure hunting. It's kind of like archaeology. Before I got into film and television, I was actually an anthropology major and I wanted to become an archaeologist. So in a way, I've kind of held on to that pop culture archaeology standpoint in my collecting. In a way, for me, it is kind of like archaeology in a sense, to go and find these bits of our pop culture past. So there's lots of layers of appeal to me in my collecting. I'd say I've been collecting off and on probably most of my adult life, 25 years or so. I mean, there's been ebbs and flows. Life obviously gets in the way, and there are priorities that exceed, trying to find your next holy grail or whatnot. It's been something that's always kind of been with me and been a part of who I am, and in a way almost indirectly, or in some cases directly, led me to where I am now. Building my collection and obtaining new pieces. One of the best things personally about living here in Los Angeles is there are so many different avenues to find the kind of stuff that I look for, and the more that you engage with other people in this hobby and find like-minded individuals, your web of contacts grows, and you realize that like part of the appeal of collecting vintage toys and stuff like this is that not only do you find new things, but you make new friends who are also dialed into this, and they help you find things that you're looking for, and it becomes a community. And I think that's one of the best things about this hobby is the community around it. There are hashtags, Toy Crew Buddies and stuff like that, and that's not just a hashtag, like that's something that actually exists, and people have made new friends, by hunting for things and finding things for each other. And so not only is it just like, oh, there's a thing that I'm looking for, I'll set a search alert on eBay. No, it's, oh, there's a thing I'm looking for, I'll go tell my buddy who runs this toy store down the street, and maybe he can keep an eye out for me and vice versa. I love finding things at trade shows and toy shows. Sometimes the smaller shows, you find the best stuff. Also important to kind of diversify your strategy. So if you want to look for something online, that's cool, but being able to find at the Rose Bowl flea market or at a toy show up in NorCal is almost as rewarding, if not more so. I try and use every resource available. Finding something new for my collection, acquiring a new piece, there's always going to be that initial rush of adrenaline of just like, oh my god, I finally found it. At the same time, like for me personally, the hunt is almost half the appeal, so it's the anticipation of finding this object, and then once you actually have it, it's the culmination of all the months or even years that you've spent trying to find that. So it's a time for reflection and introspection as to what this means to you, and for me, like it's a chapter that I'm closing and then potentially opening a new one, because I think for every collector there's always going to be like, I finally found this grail, so my next one is going to be this. And for me, it's always going to be something that I know I'll treasure and not just kind of like fleetingly appreciate and forget about. And that's always kind of been important for me as my collecting is going after things that I know, like not just in like 6 months or in 6 years or 16 years, I'm still going to look at that and be like, that was a wise investment and that was worth the hunt. So it's being selective and kind of knowing that your collection is something that means a lot to you and isn't just kind of just a surface level thing. Most of my collection is housed here in my home office, my toy room. I can call it an office because there is a computer in the corner at a desk, and there is work done in here, but it's also mostly an excuse for me to have a display space, like a museum almost for my collection. And I like to think of this room as kind of just a physical sort of representation of me and my entire life, and everything that goes into who I am is displayed around me here. So being in this room is kind of like being in my own head, and it's a very creative and inspiring and calming place for me. So I can't imagine a better place to be doing this interview than right here. There are a handful of other things that I also collect, and I feel like it's important to note that there's sometimes like a fine line between like collecting and hoarding. For me, I've always made sure to make sure that my collecting never becomes out of hand or unappealing from an aesthetic standpoint. I think being around your collection should be something that gives you a sense of calm and a sense of satisfaction. It should never be something that stresses you out. So if that's the case, maybe you need to make some tough decisions. For me, I've always managed to make sure that when I bring something new into my collection, it's something that really means a lot to me. So in addition to vintage action figures, I also collect tiki mugs because I love tiki culture and everything that goes along with it. I have a tiki bar outside my patio and an extensive collection of mugs, and those mugs are special to me because in almost every case they're from a bar from around the country that I've actually visited. So having that house mug that's been sculpted specifically for that restaurant or bar is kind of a token of that visit and all of the memories that went along with it. So there's that. I also have a collection of movies and records, comic books. Again, everything that kind of is a pastiche of who I am, I have some representation of it. I have a handful of things that are obviously most important to me in my collection. One of them is this Heinz 57 Burger Blaster ketchup bottle. So this was a premium that Heinz released in association with a commercial back in the 80s. I have absolutely vivid memories of seeing this commercial as a kid and thinking this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. And I remember mentioning it to my grandmother, kind of not realizing that it was available for sale if you sent in like your proofs of purchase and whatnot. But long story short, my grandmother was able to send in and get me the Heinz 57 Ketchup Burger Blaster, and it blew my mind. It was, at that point and still now, probably one of the most meaningful gifts that was ever given to me by a family member. The original one that I had since I was a kid is actually hanging up on my ceiling still. I've held on to it ever since, and this is one that I was able to find semi-recently in a box. It's never been opened, but yeah, this piece is very near and dear to me. So this is the Mighty car by a company called Sunel,
I don't think Mr. T signed off on the likeness, but as you can see, it's T, and he's kind of bursting through this A-Team van facsimile, and he's got his blaster and his battle axe. This thing lights up and spins around. And I remember seeing this on like a toy blog for like, you know, weird and oddball toys well over a decade ago, and there weren't too many other posts about him online, and it was one of these like pie in the sky things like, well, if I ever find this is it. I'm hanging up my spurs. I'll call it a day. Obviously it didn't happen, but I looked for this thing for quite a while, and then finally found one thanks to Penelope and her husband over at Farpoint Toys. My friend Brian Stillman mentioned that you know, I was looking for something like this, and they sure enough had one. Having this in my collection was again a culmination of years and years of searching, and yeah, it's a beauty. It's everything I ever hoped it would be and more. So I mentioned I'm into bootlegs as well, and one of the most bootlegged characters is inexplicably RoboCop, and these are a couple of my favorites. I think I got this guy at Design Con. He's a blow mold RoboCop. He's got kind of a amicable grin on his face, and he's here to protect and serve. And this might be my absolute favorite bootleg item I have. It is a RoboCop spray bottle. So you've got your RoboCop there and your little spray handle, so when you do your Sunday cleaning, you can do it with the authority of RoboCop. Again, the fact that this exists makes me really happy, and the fact that I can actually have one in my collection, it's what this hobby means to me, is having something like a RoboCop blow mold spray bottle. Another one of my favorites in my collection is this guy. This is JJ Arms, the private investigator. He's got his little action accessories. So JJ here is a multiple amputee, but that's okay because that just means that he can use gun and hook hands to thwart his enemies. The coolest thing about JJ is he was a real person. Like this toy is based on a real dude, a real private investigator who was every bit as toyetic in real life as he is here. And Ideal decided to actually make an action figure based on him. And the crazy thing is, as bizarre as his toy adventures are, I think his real life is probably just as fascinating. So if you don't know who JJ Arms is, look him up. Again, it's one of those like truth is stranger than fiction sort of situations. But yeah, his toy is fantastic. And he actually came with a whole suitcase of other accessories that you can put on. And he also has a vehicle, a van, crime lab playset. Yeah, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's amazing. I don't do a lot of focus collecting, but I do have a very soft spot in my heart for monster toys. I've always been a big monster kid. And this guy, Spectre, is sort of like the perfect amalgamation of monster toys and superhero toys for me. He's from a line called the Airgam Super Diaboliques, which was a Spanish line of action figures that were sometimes loosely based on other characters and other times very much directly based on other characters. But the cool thing was, sort of on the nose as the good guys, the Super Fantastics were, the villains all kind of had more of a unique look to them. And Spectre here is, I mean, if you took my like childhood brain and kind of deconstructed it and tried to put together an action figure that brought together everything that I love about like toys and characters and whatnot, this is it. He's got kind of the body of like an old 1940s, you know, sci-fi serial robot and a skull head. And he's got a little hood, and he's even got his own little logo on his chest. And yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing cooler than a robot skeleton guy with a laser blaster. So this is another figure that I remember seeing on a toy blog a while back, and just thinking like, man, if I could ever actually track one of those down, it's gonna be the best day of my collecting life. And then inevitably it happened, and here he is. So another one of my prize pieces. So one of my favorite items is this Batman robot. It's Bat Robot versus Zectron. So I love Batman and I love robots. So finding this was a happy day indeed. It's Batman, but he's literally a bat robot. And one of the coolest things is he can actually transform into an actual bat, which You don't see him do that often in the comics, but being able to have a toy that facilitates that is pretty magical. So there we go. There are a handful of items that I think if you don't have the package, it loses something in translation. Having this guy with its cool box art goes a long way. There are items that lose some of the context of their endearing weirdness if you don't have the full presentation. So for something like this, I'm always going to try and find the packaging with it. If you're looking for weirdo bootleg toys, it's always key to try and find the packaging too, because that's half the fun. Case in point, the big fella, who might look familiar to some people. I mean, if this was loose, it would look like, you know, any random 70s or 80s era Godzilla bootleg toy, but you wouldn't know that you actually had the big fella. So again, packaging is key sometimes. I've been blessed with amazing family and friends who don't look at this as a weird and you know, like head scratching hobby. My parents have actually always encouraged it. For better or worse, they thought it was a good outlet for creativity for me. Growing up, our house was, logistically, it was far enough away from my friends that I didn't have a lot of next door neighbors to just instantly go and play with. So a lot of times, like my toys, my Pet Monster, my 2XL robot were my most immediate company. So and it's kind of always been a part of my life. I think my parents have always found it as like a healthy outlet and something that, you know, they never saw as like a disruption. So I have my mom and dad to thank, and also my cousin Eric, who is basically an older brother for me, is a guy who got me into a lot of the toys and comics that I'm into now. He gave me some of my first comic books. Like I remember going to toy stores with him as a kid. Formative memories with him kind of inspiring me to pick up the collecting bug as well. So from a family standpoint, they've always been super supportive, and I've always found, you know, like-minded friends who, even if they weren't super dialed into collecting, appreciated what it was and appreciated the passion, just the expression that it provides, and a healthy hobby is important. And you know, I think more and more as we go now, people are looking at this as kind of like a really cool, interesting sort of element to one's life, and not something that don't quite understand or approve of. As any collector knows, there's always going to be the next thing that you're looking for. For me, I have this, pull this over. So this is a card for a vending machine that you would find in a grocery store in the 80s for food robots. Now, if you were to actually see this, you know, vending machine, you would see all of the robots basically shrink wrapped to this card showing you what you could possibly get in your prize ball. These guys, the actual robots themselves on this card, has been something I've been looking for a while, and something I continue to look for. The other thing I think will probably have to be, if anyone's familiar with the toy line Mask from Kenner, also has a lesser known but also highly sought after bootleg set called Mesk, and it's 4 of the main characters in a completely different scale, like completely original sculpts. I almost feel apprehensive talking about it because I don't want more people out there looking for it. Here's hoping one day I can include them in the collection. The last thing that I didn't see in the wild, but this came up recently. It was in like a forum thread. Someone mentioned that, you know, they had seen this themselves and had never actually seen in person, but it was a chicken robot with like a Super Sentai pilot inside. It was called the Universal Space Cock, I think it was, or Fighting Cock, Universal Space Fighting Cock, something along those lines. But it was the most like mind-blowingly weird and amazing and awesome thing I've seen in some time. And now I've committed myself to actually finding one of these things because it, again, encompasses so much of what I love about like weird bootleg toys. So stay tuned. I'm confident that one day I'll be able to find this robot Super Sentai fighting chicken monster. Is there an overall goal for me to collect or to continue collecting? I think everyone kind of has to have an idea of what's a reasonable amount to collect and wins too much and when you need to pull back. I don't think I ever want to, have like an end date to when I'm going to say like, that's it, I'm never buying another vintage figure again. I think for me, it's just a matter of knowing what kind of stuff you want to collect. Again, making sure that what you collect is something that you're going to love and appreciate for years on end. And so, as long as there are pieces out there that mean something to me, that I know that I'm going to really, really dig having, I'll keep collecting. Yeah, I don't really want to put one specific goal in mind, because that means that there's nothing else after that. So the goal is to always have something that inspires me to keep going. Having a background in kind of pop culture related programming is sort of the perfect marriage of my hobby that I love and my chosen profession, and being able to combine them both and basically be a professional nerd it's the dream come true. It's me being able to unironically say I'm living the dream.
I started using Legos because when I was in kindergarten and I was graduating to become a first grader, summer school at a boys and girls club, I fell off the bleachers there and I fell straight on my left arm and I fractured it. And I was doing therapy for my left arm and they suggested that I use Legos. The thing I like the most about Legos is that there's endless possibilities of what you can do. My name is Daniel. I help my father with his YouTube channel, The Magnificent World of Toys. I am a collector, a gamer, and a bit of an artist. Pretty much ever since I was born, I remember I used to play with animal toys. Usually when I was little, what I would do was I would get my toys, put them in little lines across the floor, pretty much making like a parade. I got the inspiration to do that because of the scene from The Jungle Book where all the elephants are marching and the elephant rave from Dumbo. Mainly I collect Jurassic World toys. I usually just collect the things that I like from the line, but I'm trying to collect everything right now just so I can have a complete collection. I also collect Skylanders. I originally started collecting them when I was 8 years old. I remember my cousin, he got them for his birthday, and I saw how it was cool how you would put the toy on the portal that it came with, and it would pretty much just teleport onto the TV and into the game where you can play as that character. And I also did collect Legos when I was little. I used to just build the sets, take them apart, and then build things, and I'm still doing that to this day. I also draw a lot. I have 3 sketchbooks that are full already because I barely just started getting sketchbooks, but even back then I used to just get little papers I could find and draw on them. What I do too with these is I take one out and just look at it, get a piece of paper and draw it out just to keep practicing. I like to draw creatures and robots. I also get this big bin right here of Legos. Just look through all the parts and then think of something to build and build it. I used to watch Alien and Jurassic Park when I was little. I remember my dad, he would get his big projector, he would put it on a wall, and we would just watch movies. I remember the first time I ever saw Jurassic Park, I was just so enthralled seeing an actual dinosaur on TV. I just got won over by it immediately. I also liked Alien because it was a very cool and darker version of Star Wars. I kind of like dark things, like horror, scary things, but it's the one that I really like the most, and also because of the detail of the aliens. And the usual aliens you see they have like that big head, they're a gray color, and they have those big black eyes. But these ones brought a whole new meaning to alien. You know, like they laid eggs in your chest, they would pop out. And I just really like the way they look. For Overwatch, I just really like how the characters are so diverse and unique. My two favorite toys are right now my Reinhardt figure. He's just like this big tank that has this big shield to protect his team members. And he has a pretty cool hammer where he can boost and hit things harder with it. And my Brachiosaurus right here, because it's pretty much the first dinosaur I've ever seen on the TV, and I actually like these type of dinosaurs. They're called sauropods. They have like those long necks, and the Brachiosaurus is one of them. And also people call me a Brachiosaurus too because of my height. For drawing, I'm inspired by Jonan Vasquez. He's the creator of Invader Zim. I just like his art style and like his dark humor. I've seen the Invader Zim movie on Netflix countless times because I enjoy his characters. They're nice and funny and cool. For Legos, I'm inspired by a YouTuber. His name is Chubby Bots. He creates robots, and sometimes I just watch a video, use some of his techniques on my robots. I like to see how they turn out. For collecting Jurassic Park, I'm inspired by another YouTuber. His name is The Gaming Beaver. He's from the UK. He has a large collection of Jurassic Park, and I just see him and I think, okay, this guy collects and he's pretty famous, so I don't think people would think I'm weird for doing it. I've been inspired for sculpting by all artists we've interviewed so far. I really like their diverse ideas and seeing their cool little sculptures like in real life. I'm also inspired by Ray Harryhausen, and a YouTuber's name is Ace of Clay. Right now I'm trying to sculpt Pazuzu. He's a character from The Exorcist, and the only reason I started sculpting him was because one of my favorite bands, Gorillaz, has him as like a weird character. I also made this character. I just thought of something. I kind of got inspired by Yoda from Star Wars, and then I saw my Brachiosaurus. I just gave Yoda like a big body, a long tail, and a really long neck. What I've liked the most about working on the Magnificent World toys is just going on an adventure with my dad, because there's not too much of time I'm gonna have with that, because I'm about to go to high school and college too. I also like meeting many different people that we have on the show. We've seen a lot of people here, and all of them I really like, and I consider them as friends. My favorite three things I've seen while helping film The Magnificent World of Toys are, I remember when we went to go film an artist named Creature Kid. He had like this big armature of the King Kong. It was like a copy. The second thing I liked the most was the Techno Drum owned by Jack Grimmett, because I'm also kind of a fan of Ninja Turtles. I don't have a lot of the figures. I only have a figure of Slash, Dog Pound, and Fish Face, which are my favorite characters. And the third and last one, Saul Hurtado, he had this knight armor. I always thought knights are cool. That's why I got the Reinhardt figure. I would like to have a collection of art books. I just like seeing the sketches of the artists and seeing their original ideas. I would also hope to try and get the old toy lines of Jurassic World, like the Kenner toy lines and the only good Hasbro toy line, which is Jurassic Park 3. There's a new line of Jurassic World toys. It's called the Primal Attack. There's only a few that I want, and also what I'm trying to look for right now is a 2-pack of 2 Overwatch characters called Genji and Hanzo. They're brothers. I also really like characters that have like a sibling or brother, because I have a sibling. I just like to see characters who can relate. recently what I've been trying to do, because many people have influenced me saying, oh, you should do a comic, but I don't really feel like it. So what I'm trying to do is sketch all my characters. I'd like to get all my sketches, put them in a box, and share them to either Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. I'll put a note on top of them saying, I hope you guys can do something with this. If you're not going to do anything to it, can you please send it back so I can try again? And then I would just like to do it over and over again until I get a yes or a good answer. What I'm hoping to do is just turn on the TV, go onto the network that it's premiering on, just look for a commercial of my characters on that screen and just think I'm completed. I've done what I've been wanting to do for my entire life. Just seeing my characters alive, jumping and running, that's just gonna bring a few tears of happiness and a smile on my face. I think I always will like toys, mainly because I've pretty much been born with toys. Like, ever since I was born, I had toys of some kind. And I don't know, I just can't feel comfortable having an empty shelf without something sitting on there.
Hello folks, Roger Daniel here for the Magnificent World of Toys. Today's video is about a really cool event that I got to attend with 3 of my friends last week, which is the Toy Fest Swap Meet in Glendale. So in today's video, we're going to take an inside look into that toy show. We're going to speak to the organizers, Lauren and Scott, who basically were gracious enough to sit down with us for a few minutes and talk about their show and what it is they do. But also, we will go back and we will look at some of the things that my friends Travis from the Enemy Planet, Mike from Toy Depot, and Alberto Muerto, including myself, will share some of the things that we picked up at this awesome show. So without further ado, here's the Toy Fest Swap Meet.
Hey everybody, welcome to Toy Fest Swap Meet here at the Glendale's Elk Lodge. I'm Scott, this is
Lauren.
And we want to thank everybody for coming out. We're doing a nice, safe outdoor swap meet. We normally have our masks on, we do, I swear. And it's something to bring collectors and vendors out to a beautiful day, despite the smoke. It's not smoky here, it's nice.
It's almost overcast.
Yeah, it's actually kind of nice out here.
This is our second swap meet. We have a third one planned October 17th here, same location. But we actually do a lot of pop culture conventions, and because the climate and we had to stop them, that's why we're doing this. So what's the best one that we have? Power Morphicon,
Robot Toy Fest, Pasadena Comic Con, Simi Valley,
Toy and Comic Fest, ToonCon, Ventura Toy and Comic Expo,
Megabit
Game Expo.
Yeah, we do a couple shows.
Yeah, there's just a few on the roster.
I've been doing conventions since I was 14.
No, I've been attending conventions for the last 21 years. 21 years, yeah. I've been on the convention scene for 21 years, working actively in it more like 2.5.
Well, the current COVID climate says you can't do anything indoors, so we brought the toy show outdoor. All of us have gone to swap meets over the years. Now we have a toy swap meet.
And why toy swap?
Because people are bringing us toys. Like, we don't have to move, and there's toys behind us, or I can go shopping.
Yeah, you do what you want to do. I want toys.
Yeah, I want toys too, for sure.
Well, there's a lot of toy vendors. It's a toy swap meet.
Yeah.
Some guys are bringing comic books, and apparel is have a big thing now these days too.
Yeah.
A lot of people bringing out shirts. I've got a brand new shirt on. People love, crazy T-shirts. Look at that guy's shirt. It's crazy.
Crazy.
We also run Toy Wizards, which is a toy news website. We do daily articles.
So if you go to toy-wizards.com, you can check out our articles, listicles, snarticles, editorials, opinion pieces, everything related to toy news and the toy world. We have a YouTube channel, and that's just one of the things that we do. So if you want to see what we're pumping out on the daily, Toy Wizards is the best place to go.
I still like having an outdoor swamp meet.
I enjoy the swamp meet for what it is too. I mean, if everything goes back to normal tomorrow, then we're having 13 conventions on our roster. But if things stay the way they are, then we're going to keep doing things outside, and we're going to find a way to make events that make people happy. It doesn't even matter what our profit is. We want to bring the people back outside.
Yeah, we're going to bring people out together and have some fun.
Hello folks, Roger Daniel here for the Magnificent World of Toys. If I'd stop collecting today, I'd say I'd still be a fairly happy man. Yet I'm sure occasionally I'll get that mild anxiety thinking of the ones that got away, the toys that is. We all have our wish list, and for many of us this is about the pursuit of one thing or the other. As I begin to run out of space and begin to focus my finances on other things, let me share with you my wish list or the toys that will likely get away. This is my list starting from least to favorite, and maybe I'll throw in some honorable mentions towards the end. So number 10, Centurion's Jake Rockwell. Having picked up the other two at PowerCon a few years ago, I'd like to have the trio of Centurions. I only have Jake Rockwell in loose form, and I definitely love to find him complete, or at least find a helmet and one of the expansion sets to furnish and finish him. Number 9, the Robotech Tactical Battle Pod. I loved Robotech as a child. It was a little dark for my taste, but I was always fascinated by the characters, vehicles, and mecha from the show. Although I'd really settle pretty much for any Robotech toy, none fascinates me more than the Tactical Battle Pod. It's just amazing. I really love the design and size of this piece. Prices on this bad boy have skyrocketed, so my hopes of ever obtaining one of these have began to dim. Number 8, the Texas Tornado. One of my all-time favorite wrestlers was the late great Kerry Von Erich, also known as the Texas Tornado. As I'm currently collecting wrestlers for my childhood, he would be an awesome addition. Hell, I wouldn't mind having any of the other Von Erich brothers as well, because I really love those brothers and those wrestlers. So we'll see how that turns out. Number 7, Alley Viper from G.I. Joe. I've possessed this figure twice in my lifetime, once as a child and later as an adult. Alley Viper is perhaps my second all-time favorite G.I. Joe figure, my first being Shockwave. I'm really hoping to someday find one complete and at a good price. I'd say of everything else on this list, this is one that's most likely to happen, as prices vary on these from what I've seen. It's just a matter of getting it from the right person, to tell you the truth. Number 6, Hot Toys Vasquez from the movie Aliens. It's unfortunate Hot Toys released their Aliens line at a time where I wasn't collecting 1/6, which is when they were actually a little more affordable. Their Aliens figures, although flimsy and fragile, are still pretty cool. I do own Drake and Ripley and was fortunate to find those at a decent price, but the Vasquez figure eludes me. She was an awesome character, and the figure is immaculate as well. I have a feeling the day will come where I will acquire her through a trade or some other means. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. Number 5, Hot Toys Aliens Power Loader. Had Hot Toys released their second version of this as they teased a few years back, I'd probably have it by now. However, much like many other Hot Toys, they've teased it and it never saw the light of day, and now I long for the first release. These are still available and hope to make a mad dash and hustle to try to acquire them. These are fantastic pieces and a must-have for any Aliens fan. Number 4, Bengali from Thundercats. I have a fairly modest Thundercats collection, and that's a little odd considering I favor that line over Masters of the Universe. One Thundercat figure I doubt I'll ever find cheap is my all-time favorite 80s figure, Bengali. I long for those days where I traverse the aisles at Frankenson and scoff at the mint and complete ones that were selling at that time for under $100. Now they more than tripled in price in many cases. The frustrating part about Bengali is that I know he's out there, just not at a price I'm prepared to pay. So until we go back to the early 2000s, looks like you won't be joining the magnificent world of toys anytime soon, Bengali. Number 3, Alfred's Lone Wolf and Cub. You can't even find Alfred's figures out there anymore, much less that of my all-time favorite graphic novel, Lone Wolf and Cub. I actually held this in my hand nearly 2 decades ago at the old Los Angeles comic book and sci-fi convention at the Shrine. However, at that time the price of that figure was way beyond my reach, as I had a minimum wage job and too many bills to pay. Sadly, by the time I was able to afford one, they became nearly impossible to find. So out of curiosity, I decided to try to find one on eBay, and none even popped up. I mean, this is a figure I've lost all hope of ever obtaining, and likely will never obtain unless I become a millionaire and talk my way to convincing somebody to sell me theirs. Number 2, Shozo Hiraman. This is a 1/6 scale figure of Bunta Sugawara. He's one of my all-time favorite Japanese actors. I discovered him in the film series known as the Yakuza Papers, Battles Without Honor and Humanity, which I recommend you check out. I love the films so much that I attempted to sculpt the 1/6 scale head of him, but gave up after not being satisfied with the way it was turning out. I wonder if by any chance a figure had ever been made, so I googled Bunta Sugawara action figure, and sure enough, something popped up. It was some limited edition figure in Japan by a company whose name I don't even remember. I believe one may have been available at Mandarake at the time, but once again, my wallet was a little light at that time. I hope to find one day if I go to Japan. If not, I may just commission somebody, which would be cheaper, to make a nice head of him for me. And the number 1 toy topping my wish list is the Alfred's 7 Samurai set. The 7 Samurai is my all-time favorite film. If you haven't seen it, watch it. You would think I would have owned the action figures of them by now. However, when I realized there was an Alfred set, it was once again at a time where I simply did not have the money for it. In the early 2000s, the lowest I saw the set go for was $1,200, which is not bad at all, and it was fairly available. Nowadays, it's not only difficult to find, it has more than tripled in price. I can only hope that someday I find one at a good price, maybe in the aftermarket or possibly when I visit Japan. This is a set that I will likely never obtain though because of the price. Not only that, I mean, it may be just too rare, too late, and you know, one of those things where I literally probably have to win the lottery to be able to afford it. All right, so that's my top 10 list. Well, this list was actually going to be a lot longer, mainly because there's just, you know, a lot of things that I like. The list is actually shorter because first and foremost, I didn't want to end up with an odd number like my top 12 or my top 17 or whatever. And then also, I have been able to acquire some of the pieces that I had been wanting for quite some time. But before I get to those, let me get to the ones that I'm hoping to get. I probably don't want them as bad as the stuff in my top 10, but it would be good to get them. And first and foremost would be a Decompose from the Inhumanoids line. I got the 2 other big fellows, and it would just really be great to get a Decompose so that I can have that trio. You just can't have either of those figures and not have all 3. It's just kind of weird. It's like, it feels like I'm missing a tooth or something in not having a Decompose. Also, you know, I would like to pick up some Ninja Turtles from the late 80s. I do have a nice handful of them, but you know, I really want to pick up some of the ones that I had during my childhood. I would really love to have a few, maybe like Foot Soldiers and a few of the other characters and stuff that I really enjoyed, and you know, the figures that I enjoyed playing with. And then I think I've mentioned it several times, you know, I've been pretty excited about seeing people's Mighty Crusaders collections, and so I did have some of those when I was a kid, and I would really love to kind of be reunited with a few of those. I mean, I'd like to have the whole set. I mean, they're not that many, but you know, I would really love to have at least a handful of them. And last but not least, Wheeled Warriors, JC and the Wheeled Warriors. I remember, God, I used to love waking up. Like my mom would literally wake up like at the crack of dawn, like at 4 in the morning, and then she'd leave to work. And I'd turn on the TV and I would get my bowl of cereal. And a lot of times, for whatever reason, you know, cartoons like Inhumanoids and Centurions and Silverhawks and JC and the Wheeled Warriors would go on at like the wee hours of the morning. And I mean, that would just, I just loved my mornings, my weekday mornings when I got to do that. And so, you know, I did have a couple of the Wheeled Warriors as a child, and I'm hoping to acquire at least maybe 1 or 2 of those vehicles complete. That would be great. So today, of all days, which is awesome, I got word that my Guardians of the Galaxy Nebula from Hot Toys is coming in, and I'm so excited for that figure. Honestly, that's a figure I had been anticipating since the release of the movie, and it took a very long time for her to finally come out. I mean, I even made a pretty good effort at trying to create my own. I did a good job with the head sculpt, making an outfit for her. You know, I would have had to tear up one of my valued figures to basically make the part for her, and I just didn't want to do that. And last but not least, this is one I'm totally excited for that I just didn't think I was going to get. I missed it the first time around. I just, one of those situations, the money and nothing and the stuff didn't come together, but thankfully the stars aligned, and that's this guy, the Rockafire Explosion Billy Bob Broccoli. This is actually from Justin Ishmael, who helped produce the Puglu. So yeah, I had originally missed out on this guy, and he managed, you know, he found like a case, like of 10, a limited amount. And you know, I was at work at the time, couldn't put in the order, anything. So thankfully my friend, my good friend, Hack'em Figures, you know, he jumped on it, he ordered it for me. I was able to reimburse him when he got it, and I am so excited to have this figure. I mean, if you love animatronics, showbiz, 80s stuff, this is just an amazing figure. It's soft vinyl. I mean, it's got an interchangeable head, a couple little accessories here and there. I mean, I just totally love this piece, and my son loves this piece too, by the way. So it's kind of like we have joint ownership of it anyway. I mean, I really love this figure, and I'm so excited. Thank you, Hack'em, for getting them for me. I mean, I'm really happy. So with that being said, for those of you who follow me on social media, you may have seen the announcement that actually this week, we are now 2 years old. The Magnificent World of Toys is now 2 years old, and that's great. I mean, I'm really honored and I'm really excited. I'm really happy with my amount of subscribers and everyone who supports me here on the channel and social media. I mean, this has been quite an adventure, and it's fun, and it's always good to be able to just kind of, you know, retreat from life and all the things happening around me, and be able to do these videos and just kind of be here with you, for you, whenever I can be. And it's great that, you know, the pandemic didn't stop us, and you know, we keep rolling, and we're gonna keep rolling until we just can't. And you know, basically until I gray, I guess, until I just am no longer a kid at heart, and I just can't see that happening ever, because I mean, I love toys, I love movies, I love all this stuff, and it just brings me a lot of joy, and I know that it brings a lot of you guys joy as well. So let's stay positive, ladies and gentlemen. Let's stay safe. Let's get through all of this crap, and you know, may those who play never grade. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. This is Roger Daniel for the Magnificent World of Toys. See you soon. Hello folks, Roger Daniel here for the Magnificent World of Toys. So today's video is one that I'm really excited about, and that's mainly because I finally get to open my Hot Toys Nebula from the Avengers Endgame. I actually got this figure about a month and a half ago, but you know, I wanted to wait to open it so that I can do a video about it. It's like the cherry on top for my collection of Guardians of the Galaxy figures. As you can see, I've got a few, you know, like that I've been able to acquire and as well as create. My collection is a nice mixture of customs. My Yondu, that's actually a custom. I made that myself, and as well as my Ronan the Accuser. I always wanted the 5 core members, of course. You had to have Star-Lord, you had to have Rocket Raccoon, Gamora, Drax, as well as Groot, and even Thanos. So I'm very excited, super stoked that I finally got this Nebula. The original Guardians of the Galaxy is one of my favorite films from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The second one was okay, but the first one is really my favorite, and I always wanted a Nebula. I even attempted to make my own ones, and it just didn't work out because I couldn't get the accessories and stuff. But either way, I'm really happy to finally have this Hot Toys Nebula. So let's go ahead and take her out of the box and see what comes with her, and then we'll pose her and have some fun with her. She doesn't come loaded with stuff, but then at the same time, she's not like extremely highly priced. I think she comes with about as much as you would expect from a figure at this price point. She comes with 7 interchangeable hands. She comes with a pistol holder, also 2 long batons, 1 blaster, some translucent blue colored lighting effects. She also comes with a movie themed figure stand, which is pretty cool. Let's get some closer looks of her. So that about does it for today's video, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. You know, I really had a lot of fun posing her and doing a lot of that green screen stuff. And I'm really excited about this figure. I mean, I can't stress enough how happy I am to finally have a Nebula. I mean, she has been my favorite character of the franchise all throughout. And I mean, this is just, I mean, this figure, I mean, Hot Toys just did a really great job. And, you know, I hate to say it, but this is actually a bittersweet video. I mean, mainly because she may be the last Hot Toys figure I will be buying for the foreseeable future, maybe even 1/6 scale, mainly because of financial constraints, but also because I'm really beginning to run out of space, and there's a lot of other things that I'm starting to collect nowadays, and I'm setting my sights on. And so, you know, I want to have enough space to be able to start collecting all these other cool things. And you know, I mean, I'm sure the opportunity will come for me to pick up another Hot Toys figure, another really cool 1/6 scale figure down the line. But, you know, I mean, I'm not really going to be actively seeking to buy much of these, regardless of how bad I really want them. I mean, and it sucks because yeah, I have been collecting 1/6 scale for quite some time, and so it's just, but still, it's like it gets expensive, and not only that, I mean, it's just kind of you run out of space quick, and it's very frustrating when you have a lot of them, you know, stored, and you can't look at them, you can't adequately display them, and so it's like, you know, I guess I have to take a break until either I make more space or something else. But either way, like I said, bittersweet. Couldn't have wrapped collecting 1/6 scale with a better figure, which is this Nebula Hot Toys figure. Thanks once again for joining me. This was Roger Daniel for the Magnificent World of Toys. May those who play never gray. I hope to see you soon. Stay safe. Take care. Thank you. Hello folks, well, if you made it this far, I'd like to take the time to thank you and congratulate you. So as you saw, this marathon was shorter than last year's marathon, and so I certainly hope that you enjoyed it, that you saw something you hadn't seen before, and that maybe you got inspired and motivated by these collectors and these artists. And just know that I really enjoy putting this kind of content together because I learn and I get inspired along with you. And I'm very lucky to kind of, you know, preview these things and see these things firsthand and meet these people. And I certainly hope that we can keep this going for as long as we can. So may those who play never gray. Thank you for your subscribership, your viewership, and I will see you soon. Take care. Bye.